We deal with him to a guy named Furio Junta. He speaks English.
Ah, Furio, one of the most popular characters on The Sopranos, the Italian-born mobster who immigrates during the second season. He had proven his worth to Tony with his absolute fealty and became an important member of the crime family, demonstrated in this scene. The American characters call him a Zip.
It's that fucking Zip Furio.
This term comes up again in the 6th season when Tony brings hitmen from Naples to help Johnny sack. The inspiration for these characters is taken from real-life Zips, who were affiliated with the various crime families of New York. This is the first in a series of videos I would like to do on the Zips. Zips, Geeps, Greaseballs, or Siggies. Who are they? What do they do? We'll come to see that the concept of these characters is based around many real-life examples. The main difference between the real life and The Sopranos is that the real Zips were usually Sicilian and not Neapolitan, as portrayed on the show. I will expand on this in a further episode. So, to put it simply, the Zips were Sicilian mafiosi who came to work in America under the proviso of a particular American mafia family. The actual definition of who worked for who was often cloudy. One main reason the Zips came to America was to work in narcotics. Narcotics had been banned by the American Mafia godfathers. However, the way around it was to allow the Zips to work in New York in a family's particular territory, as long as they paid some kind of tax and respect. Most rank-and-file American mobsters did not like the Zips, feeling them to be both ruthless and clan-like.
Furio. If ever there was a guy in desperate need of a fucking nickname.
They felt that the Zips came here and were not respectful, despite being on someone else's turf. As for how the Zips felt, well, I doubt they cared, probably feeling that most American mobsters did not pass muster. In one particular incident, revealed by a New Jersey captain in the Lucchese crime family, Anthony Acciatoro, was that he would periodically help a team of Zip hitmen who were sent to America for various assignments. Acciatoro would help them get a car and lodgings and direct them as to where they might find their target. Tumac, as Acciatoro was known, discovered just how ruthless his cousins from the other side were in one particular incident. The hitman came to kill an elderly mobster who was dying of heart disease. Despite being sick and in the hospital, the hitman killed him, being sure to exact mafia vengeance before Mother Nature could take its course. We see further demonstration of Furio's ruthless efficiency when he finally arrives in the United States. Tony puts him to work collecting money from a brothel that is slow to pay.
Did you talk to that guy down at the tanning salon? He only had half.
Initially, the problem is supposed to be solved by Christopher, but he is caught up with his acting for writers class, and Tony decides Furio is the man for the job.
You know what? Leave it alone. Sure? Yeah.
If we think back to the previous episode, we can see that Tony's initial instinct was correct. While Furio was putting his life on the line to save his boss, Paulie was showing sympathy for the firecracker kid and leaving the meeting early to take a shit.
I gotta take a wicked shit.
Meanwhile, Christopher was getting high with Tano, the Camorra henchman, neglecting to even show up for the meeting. In this one shot of Tony's face, we see exactly why he covets Furio just as much as he wants to complete the car deal. The most notorious stories about the Sicilian mobsters in America is told through the ruthless and legendary mobster Carmine
What do you got when
Galante.
you get to the country? Well, I planted peppers last week, now I'm going to plant tomatoes.
Carmine Galante was born in New York to immigrants from the small Sicilian town of Castellammare del Golfo. In fact, Castellammare del Golfo was where many famous New York godfathers originated from, and there was even a mafia war during the 1930s among immigrants from the area in New York. Perhaps one of the most infamous mobsters to come from there is Joe Bonanno, a founding boss of the original 5 families that still bears his name to this day. It also happened to be that Galante was an ambitious captain in the Bonanno crime family.
Galante's legal front was a dry cleaning shop in New York's Little Italy, but his real interests embraced gambling, prostitution, loan sharking, and most of all, heroin and other drugs.
In the late 1970s, Galante had been released after a lengthy prison sentence for drug dealing, and he went right back at it, once again proving the point that mobsters from Sicily were involved in the drug trade. Galante had brought over 2 Zips to help him with his business and be his bodyguards, Cesare Bonventre and Baldo Amato. Bonaventre was related to the former Bonanno underboss, John Bonventre. As Galante began to build his power base inside the family, the other godfathers became nervous. Galante was unwilling to share his drug profits and had grand designs on becoming the boss of the Bonanno family, even though the real boss was imprisoned mobster Rusty Rastelli. The commission had had enough and sanctioned a hit on him. They were able to flip Bonventre and Amato to betray the man who brought them to America. In July of 1979, Galante was enjoying a post-meal cigar at a small Italian eatery in Bushwick when gunmen burst into the back garden and killed him.
Mafia boss Carmine Galante and 2 other men were shot dead today as they ate lunch in a Brooklyn restaurant.
A contract was fulfilled this afternoon. On the receiving end of that contract was one of the top Mafia chiefs in the nation, perhaps the boss of all the bosses, Carmine Galante.
Almost everyone was murdered except for his 2 bodyguards. Both had been wearing leather jackets despite the July heat and ran off after their erstwhile boss was murdered. After being fugitives for a month, they turned themselves in, already having hired lawyers. After routine questioning, both men were released. The Bonanno family remained stable for a time before once again erupting into a power struggle. Bonventre and the Zips were drawn into the struggle and continued to play an important role in the politics of the family, so keep them in mind for a later episode.